So my last video, I talked a little bit about the Montgomery bus boycotts and how it's kind of a romanticized version of what really happened during that time that led to desegregation. And if you're wondering, just go back and watch that video. But the reason that video came to be is because I was writing an article that really challenged all of us to think about what are we asking for with boycotts. You know, we're boycotting Target and Walmart and Amazon, all these, companies. But what are the demands? And if one of the demands is to, DEI related, then we need to get very specific about what that means. Because if we bring back DEI in the form it was in before the boycotts, then a lot of people are going to be really disappointed, because there's a lot of opportunity when it comes to what DEI could be and what it could live up to. But we have to be specific about what that means. And I used the Montgomery bus boycotts because there were 3 very specific demands of the Montgomery bus boycott. And spoiler alert, none of them were to desegregate the buses. The first demand that they had was that all of their passengers, especially the Black passengers, are treated courteously. They just wanted to be treated with some respect and dignity. So that was the first one. The second one was that there was a first come, first serve kind of basis where Black people would still sit in the back, white people would sit in the front. The only difference is if a white person got onto the bus and there was no seating in the whites only section, then a Black person would not have to give up their seat for that white person who just got on the bus. So that was their second demand. The third demand was that Black people be the bus operators and bus drivers for predominantly Black routes. So those were the 3 demands of the Montgomery bus boycott. And I go into some of the reasons in the previous video why that is. But when I was thinking about those demands, none of which were met. None of those things happened without the lawsuit. That's why the boycott lasted 381 days. But none of those demands were met. However, the point that I was going to make in this article is that there has to be demands, and they have to be very specific. So I have some demands for DEI, and I'm just going to talk about one in this particular video because I think that this one kind of lays the groundwork for anyone that come after this. And so the one that I want to talk about is related to pay. And when I think about pay in the DEI conversations that are happening now, it mostly relates to pay equity. There's a conversation, between men and women. Is everyone getting paid what they're supposed to get paid for doing the same amount of work? And there's a pay gap that gets brought up every single year, talked about. And then there's this, really crazy goal of it'll take 6,437 more years before there's pay equity. That's the current conversation of pay in the DEI kind of world. But that conversation normally doesn't trickle down to folks who perhaps aren't in corporate environments. So when we're talking about Target and Amazon and Walmart, we're not talking about the people who are working in the stores or are working in the warehouses like that. It's not really the same kind of thing for those folks. So when I think about pay, I think about a livable wage. And I think about that just kind of being the bare minimum. I mean, the bare minimum for what we should be asking for is that if we're going to talk about pay, if we're going to have some sort of meaningful and impactful transformation, and if that's what we expect as part of the DEI conversation and things that are being brought back, we've got to talk about pay. And I have this really interesting tool that I want you all to see and kind of take a look at that I think will add some fuel to this fire to get more folks talking about what pay should be. Because I know we've always talked about minimum wage. It's so far behind and it needs to catch up. And I want to speed up, shift, and talk about things in perhaps a different way so that as we are thinking about what we should be asking for, this rises to the top of the list. So let's take a look. So MIT created something called the Living Wage Calculator, where they break it down what the living wage has to be based on your city or your county, based on just the cost of living. And what I really love about this particular calculator is that it breaks it down if you are one adult with 0 children, 1 child, 2 children, 3 children, and you can see kind of the list of different things that it is tallying and adding up. But make sure you look at this very last line right here, the required annual income before taxes, and then you'll see kind of 2 rows up is after taxes. So the second kind of grouping is 2 adults. 1 adult is working in the household. How much money do they need to care for 0 children, 1 child, 2 children, 3 children? And then the last one is 2 adults. Both of them are working. And what I love about this is that it gives you how much someone needs to get paid, but it also incorporates the breakdown after taxes.